decades, the man in charge of the Tenants blacklist has spoken out. As Damien Hansen reports, he's calling for greater powers for landlords to track down and prosecute bad tenants.
It's a disgrace. It's disgusting. I'm furious.
Never manage a property by yourselves privately. If you do, you're in trouble.
Stealing someone's rent is no different to stealing a loaf of bread or stealing petrol.
This man speaking publicly for the first time in 17 years. We've concealed his identity because he fears for his life. When bad tenants are banned, he becomes a target.
We've had death threats, we've had bomb threats, abusive phone calls. So we take it very, very seriously.
Philip created Ticker, the big black book of rebellious renters, a list of 300,000 Australians you don't want in your home, your street, or even your neighbourhood. This year, 1,200 defaulters are being added to his files every week. Philip says behind closed doors, landlords are leaving themselves open to abuse, and so are taxpayers.
We've got to start making people responsible for their actions. Society cannot be responsible all the time because somebody decides to be a dudder.
His database is more than a shame file. It's a valuable resource, one being underutilised by governments all around the country.
We need legislation in place that'll turn around and say that rent evasion is theft.
They said they were clean. They said we're reliable. They said trust us.
Landlords like Rosie O'Sullivan forced to clean up after terrible tenants who treat houses like rubbish dumps.
I've never seen the position of letting a property so drastic where people are climbing over to get in the side and getting an application ahead of other people.
Rental vacancy rates are at an all-time low, verging on critical levels. On average, it's 1.2% in Sydney, 1.7% in Melbourne, Brisbane 1.8%, Adelaide and Perth just 1.5% and 3.1% of all rental properties are vacant.
We've got investors that have contacted us and said, look, I'm out.
Then there's the more than 230,000 Australians waiting for public housing. 40,000 in New South Wales and Victoria, 30,000 in Queensland and 55,000 in WA.
State housing should be for the needy, not the greedy.
Government figures show the cost of repairing public housing runs well into the hundreds of millions of dollars every year.
They're not playing with their money, they're playing with my money, your money, our monies.
Philip says it's a cost that can be reduced if more checks are adopted.
We've offered state housing in 3 different states, membership to Ticker. We've also offered them the ability to check people on the database before they put them into the property, and they've knocked us back.
Rosie O'Sullivan's a landlord who decided to self-manage her investment property. Big mistake. It took 18 months to renovate. Her tenants took half the time to ruin it. The yard resembled a tip. Even worse, it's full of fleas.
Oh, that is disgusting.
It's all over me.
I will never rent my property privately ever again.
This time, Rosie handed over the management of her property to an agent.
These walls were brand new, and now they are covered in filth. They're ruined.
She trusted her agent would do the checks.
Look, they've been hacked to pieces. The cooktop, this is disgusting. I don't know how an agent can pass this time and time again.
So she tracked them down herself.
The cowboys in our industry, the real estate agents, you know what they do? They just tick the forms and send to the owner.
Veteran property manager Len Pretty is blunt in his assessment of landlord rights.
I've been known as a vigilante, a person who helps the landlords against bad tenants. Now, I'll never change. Why should I change when the landlords are being screwed?
And neither will repeat offenders if soon-to-be introduced legislation allows for the slates of serial rental rats to be wiped clean every 3 years.
The government has basically said, you don't have to repay that debt. You're going to walk away in 3 years' time.
In New South Wales, laws boosting renters' rights came into effect 7 years ago. Reforms have been rolled out in Queensland and will soon be in place in Victoria from March next year.
One thing I've learned, don't trust the tenant as far as you can throw them.